Well, now we can speak to Caroline Anning. She's the Syria Advocacy Director at World Vision. She joins us live from Amman in Jordan. So give us an idea of the scale of this refugee problem that's been created by this intensified bombing in Syria.
We've seen just in the last week, 150,000 people have fled their homes along that frontline area in southern Idlib, moving northwards through the governorate. A lot of those people will have already been displaced at least once or maybe more. Their families have been forced to flee from other areas by what's been almost continuous fighting in some of these areas for the last 8 years of conflict. So now 150,000 people moving into northern Idlib, to areas completely overwhelmed, to be honest, already with families that have been displaced. So humanitarians are struggling to provide just basic things like tents and blankets and food and water to those families that are arriving. And more people are coming every day.
And what about whilst they're on the move? Are they safe, any safer kind of moving than they are under the bombardment?
I mean, you know, people are taking their lives in their hands often, whether they leave or whether they stay. I think people have made a judgment that there's such intense fighting at the moment on bombardment. It's so unfortunate that after a period of relative calm, after a ceasefire that was agreed, this huge violence has started up again, causing civilian casualties, attacks on civilian infrastructure. So people are picking up what little they can carry and moving. The north is, the governorate currently is relatively safe. But the challenge there, as I say, is just a complete lack of shelter. You'll have people sleeping outdoors, people without enough to eat. And as more people arrive, that's just going to be more and more of a challenge.
Tell us a bit about children, because I understand that your colleagues there have been seeing lots of children on the move on their own.
Absolutely. So World Vision is a child-focused organisation, and that's one of the biggest concerns for us. About half the population of Idlib are children, so a huge number of those fleeing are kids. And their children tell us, they tell our partners that they're terrified. They've been terrified of being forced to leave their homes again. They're terrified of the airstrikes and the violence. They're terrified of losing their family members. And we know that they're really vulnerable in these difficult conditions on the road as they're fleeing, as they're arriving in overcrowded displacement camps. They're much more vulnerable to the cold. It's still quite cold at night here. They're vulnerable to disease that can spread in those camps without proper sanitation. So children are really at risk here, and it's really, you know, it sounds simple to say, but it's really unfair that this is being imposed on children in this area of Syria again, who's already suffered so much through 8 years of this conflict, and now being forced to uproot their lives, flee again, or to potentially lose their lives. And we know that the UN says that they think children have been killed just over the last week in this bombardment.
And Tommy, you mentioned the humanitarian crisis that's ongoing. How much help can the organisations that are trying to provide assistance give? Because we heard in Zena Hodda's report that some of the NGOs are just not able to operate there.
There's probably some areas along the front lines where it's difficult for humanitarians to go to, but there is a huge aid effort in this area, and it's Syrian humanitarian workers who are on the ground delivering aid. Agencies like World Vision are supporting that effort, but it's Syrians who are risking their lives to go about it. So they still are able to deliver. They're still able to get to people. They're moving as people move from frontline areas to displacement camps to other areas. They're moving with them, and they're bringing services with them. The biggest challenge really that they're finding at the moment, in addition to the insecurity which they're so used to having to navigate, is just the sheer numbers of people and the overwhelming needs. People are coming with nothing, and those aid workers, aid agencies on the ground, we've already been overwhelmed trying to deal with the crisis in Idlib. So this new displacement, and certainly if even more people are displaced after this, is going to be very difficult to deal with. So that's why we need more support from the international community, in addition to a ceasefire, to help deal with that.
Caroline Anning from World Vision, thank you very much indeed.